Hello, everybody, and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson. And I'm really excited to welcome to the show today, Laura Barber, somebody I have known for many, many years and originally met in my first marketing career. And I recently reconnected with Laura because she's doing some fascinating work now, moving into the space of human stories, ripples, and insights. But more about that in a minute. But first of all, a very warm welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to reconnect after those General Mills days. So it's wonderful to be here today. So thank you for having me.
It was absolutely, you were somebody who as soon as I saw what you were doing, I was like, that, it'd be amazing to have you on the show, to share your stories, to share your perspectives on leadership, but also the work that you're doing now, which I'm really excited by. So actually, perhaps you could share a bit more in detail with the listeners about that journey and what it is
Yeah.
exactly that you're doing now. So you can really explain it in your own words.
Yeah, of course. So firstly, thank you for having me. And it's amazing to be on the other side of the podcast and be a guest. So I get to experience what it's like as a guest. So it's wonderful to be here. So thank you. I've spent over 22 years in branding, in insights, in marketing, and in strategy. And I've had the privilege of working in some of the world's biggest companies like General Mills, where we first met, Coca-Cola, Walgreens Boots Alliance, and PepsiCo. So some incredible big organizations from food to beverage to retail to beauty, and leading transformation through insights, through marketing, and through global brands. So what a privilege and what a fantastic couple of decades that has been. Last year, I decided to take all of that experience into my own business and I set up the Ripple Impact. And I work now with founders and small, medium enterprises to really help them with their brand storytelling. So, taking all that expertise into the founder and the entrepreneurial spirit to help businesses and leaders uncover their story. So, it could be a founder story that they really want to unlock as part of their business, or it could be their brand strategy and how they tell their stories to consumers, to customers, to shoppers, and really sharpen that storytelling into something really powerful, really emotional, something that connects beyond the product, but a brand that people can get behind and really feel passionate about just as much as that founder or that small business does. So it's been an incredible journey of starting the Ripple Impact. And I also host my own podcast, which is called The Ripple Impact. And that is also about human storytelling. So understanding the ripple moments in people's lives and how that's had a lasting impact on them, on business, on brands, in culture, in life, in leadership. So it's been an incredible journey and working with some amazing people and amazing clients. So I'm very, very, very lucky.
Well, I have to say, I've been listening to the podcast and it's amazing. Love the stories, so varied from so many different people, different backgrounds, different cultures, and different perspectives on human storytelling. So, let's start with storytelling. Why is that so important right now in this moment? Why is it about this, the sharpening the human storytelling?
I think it's one of those things that's always been part of humanity. We've told stories since the caveman times of drawing beautiful pictures on walls to tell stories to future generations. Storytelling is in our DNA. It's what we do, it's how we inspire, it's how we connect. It's when we sit around the dinner table in the evening, it's the things we tell each other, it's how humans bond and share knowledge and story and wisdom and laughter and joy. And it's just something that's so beautifully powerful. And I wanted to take that into business. And I think even more so now with AI and everything that's going on in the technology world, I believe that human stories are even more important in a world of AI. And I think that's why this means so much to me and something that I want to bring to brands and businesses, that they can inspire consumers through this emotive and powerful storytelling.
I love that. I love that. And it absolutely resonates with me as somebody who very much believes in leadership about being about that human connection as well. And the ripple impact as well, the name of the business, the name of the podcast. Talk to us also about this idea of ripples. What's that
Yeah.
also to do with human storytelling?
It's funny because the story actually starts in my childhood. So one of my favorite stories, and memories actually more than stories, one of my favorite memories is throwing the pebbles across the pond. So you know when you kind of skim the pebbles across a lake or across a pond, and we've always done that as children. Our dad taught us how to do it, and we've always done that as children. So and I never really kind of realized this until I created the business. And I thought back of these, and the pebble bounces along the water and creates these ripples of impact. So, what can be a really small moment, a single pebble in a drop of water, actually can create huge momentum and can ripple really, really far and wide. And that for me has always been the power of branding and marketing and insights, that a single story or a single moment can inspire something much, much bigger. And it ripples outward and creates this movement and inspires other people to then pass that on. And your consumers almost become the ripple impact of your brand when they tell their stories and your stories onwards with other people. And that's the idea of momentum. But what I've been really finding interesting through the conversations with my podcast guests is that the ripple can happen, but it only turns into a wave when you actually act on it. It's very easy for it to pass you by. So a lot of my guests talk about these serendipitous moments in their lives and in their career where something happened and then it took them on to do something else. And it's like, yes, but you chose to act in that moment. That ripple became a wave because you acted upon it. And I find that really fascinating. And that's what I want to help businesses do, is create that momentum and create that wave from something that seemingly can feel really small, but is actually really, really powerful.
And I really like that idea because it sounds like it's a choice that ripple plus action
Yeah.
equals the impact and momentum. And I really like that idea because I can imagine that ripples are happening all the time around us, but it's what we're choosing to notice. I don't know
Mhm.
if that's
It's
something you're
true.
taking out those
It's true.
conversations.
Absolutely. And there's a parallel with this with strategy and insights as well, because I always say strategy is just a choice. There's hundreds of thousands of directions you could take your business, and strategy is a choice. It's a direction, it's a momentum, it's a North Star, but you've chosen that. And that's true with insights. Insights are deeply powerful, but only if you act upon them. It's no well
Mm.
and good. It's no good sitting in a PowerPoint presentation. The business has to do something as a result. And that's the same with Ripple. So you're spot on. The idea of Ripple and action is what actually creates the wave. But that comes down to people. And that's why human storytelling in AI is so important, because AI can be an incredible tool, but it's not going to make the choices. That still comes down to people.
Yeah, I really love that perspective as well. It's about the what do we do with that? How do we choose to engage? How do we choose to take it forward? And Laura, I'm going to ask you a question, perhaps because this is a question you're the person normally as a podcast host on the Ripple Impact, but I'm really curious what your own Ripple moments have been. Um,
Oh, do you know what? I was saying to my partner last night, I was like, oh, I'd love to do a reverse one where someone asked me about my ripple impact stories. And I was like, who can do that? And maybe I should do it on a leap year because then it's role
yeah.
reversal. Um, oh gosh, do you know what? There's been so many. I think for me, and this what leads into kind of culture and storytelling and leadership and people and empathy, which to me are all part of the same story. And I'm actually I sat in my home in one of my spare rooms, and I call it my travel room because I am surrounded, and you can't see it in this image, but I am surrounded by moments and memories and stories that I've collected from all around the world. And I was actually born in Zambia. And we lived there until, well, we lived in Africa until I was 5 years old, and we came back to England. I'm Yorkshire, as you can tell from the accent. But yeah, I have African roots, and I'm surrounded by that in this room in particular. And I think that moment for me, and going back to Africa and knowing where you come from and the roots and the culture has always been such an important part of my life. And it's made me so deeply curious about the world and curious about people. And I think that is what has changed me as an individual person, but also as a business owner and as a leader, because it's this curiosity about the world and the people and their stories that really inspires me. and has taken me on this journey unbeknown to me. And it's only when you look back, and my guest has done the same thing, where you ask, what are those ripple impact moments? And it's only when you look back from your childhood forward that you realize how monumental these things are in your life, and you take them with you even if you don't recognize it. It's kind of it's in you. And I think that desire to travel the world, to explore cultures, to learn about people and what really motivates and inspires them led me to a career in insights. And who knew that that was going to be such an important part of my identity, but also how I choose to live my life and the career I've taken.
I love that. I love the richness of that. And I remember from even the days I knew you back at General Mills, that travel was such an important part of what motivated you. And I always remember hearing about your amazing travel stories.
Yeah.
So I'm quite interested in that, the idea of roots and
Mm.
travel and culture that has gone through your life. Do you think the way that we tell stories is different across cultures, or is it different kinds of stories? It's just unified. We all sort of approach storytelling in the same way.
Oh, that is such a good question. I think at a human level, there are these big fundamental values and constructs that connect everybody. So things like the need for belonging, that exists the world around. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in a big city, in a big metropolitan city, or a tiny tilly village that maybe hasn't even been discovered yet. There's this sense of belonging and community and connection that is true the world round. And I think, especially for global organizations, getting to those really core needs and motivations and connecting those to your brand is what can create global storytelling. And that's tough, but you can do it through these moments. But for me, the beauty lies in the nuance, actually. And that's always been a tricky balance in a global and a regional and a local structure that I've been part of over many years, is that you're trying to get to these big global ideas as a brand owner. But actually, some of the magic is in the nuance and the local cultures and the language and the visuals and the semiotics. Like semiotics as a language is so different across the world. In one place, red is danger, in another, red is luck. So across the world, there are these really critical things that make those places different. But if you can find the thing that connects us all, then
Mm.
that's where the power is. And in fact, I've
Yeah.
applied for a TED Talk, and that's kind of the red thread of my TED Talk, is that we're not powerless if we can connect other people. And this idea of all of us and the ripple impact that each of us can have has a huge impact on the world, ultimately.
Oh, that is a TED Talk I definitely want to hear. So I am keeping everything crossed that
Yeah,
you
keep
get
your
that
fingers
TED
crossed for
Talk
me.
spot. But yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, the space I'm now in, where I sort of bring together global leadership, communication, cultural intelligence. I mean, this is really resonating with me because I also remember from back in those days working in global teams, but then working in local teams, market
Yeah,
teams, and resisting that idea of a macro idea and saying, but my market's different. The culture here is different. That will
yeah.
not be interpreted in the same way. So I'm really interested as somebody who
Mm.
sat in insights and really kind of understanding those cultural nuances, but still striving for the global idea. How did you balance that? Or how did you think about that? Because that's quite a tough brief,
Yeah.
really, to try and satisfy and find something that truly is going to connect with consumers wherever they are, right?
Yeah, you're right. And the perfect word that you used there was balance, because that's exactly what it is. Because you are trying to get to this unified idea and this thought or this insight or this campaign or the big idea, a lot of organizations call it, or the tagline, whatever that is, you're trying to get to a unified idea that can inspire the masses and inspire everyone, no matter where you are in the world. But that doesn't necessarily mean uniformity. I don't believe that has to look exactly the same in every country or in every region, but it should feel the same. And I think this is why storytelling is so important and so powerful, because if it feels the same across the world, you know that ultimately that's laddering up to an emotion and a message that is the same. but it can look different. And I think that's where the nuance comes in. But that relies on a really good relationship between the local teams, the regional teams, but also the global team as well. And that there is permission, there's license, and there's active sharing between those different layers where ideas flow up and down, not just global down. And I think that's where sometimes it comes a little bit unstuck, where the global team sit very separately to all the different countries and regions, and something is built and it's deployed.
Mm.
That is very difficult. And I think this is where communication comes in, where ideas can flow up, but before it's built, not after. Because in global teams defense, sometimes what happens is big campaigns are built, and then a region or a local market or a country will say, that doesn't work for us. And it's kind of too late. You have to do that at the beginning. You have to pull in those local nuances, the language, the semiotics, even simple things like the actors that are going to be in your advertising campaign.
Mm.
If it's fully Western, it's not going to connect the same around the world. So taking in those nuances at the beginning, not using it as a does this work or not metric at the end. So it's that communication flow, but it's balance, and doing that is an art, and it takes time, and
Mm.
it takes deep communication and listening.
Absolutely. Actually, you said the word that I was going to sort of really reflect on, which was listening. It
Mm.
sounds like it's a very important listening exercise, but also it sounds like it's an experiential exercise as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, walking in stores, walking, going to people's homes, as I remember doing when I was in marketing days as well, but really understanding how people live and how that might
Yeah.
be different in different regions, different areas. Yeah, I mean, I always remember from that time that it is a really tricky balance, but at the same time, with cultural intelligence, with that
Mm.
openness and the right time,
Yeah.
experiential listening, it can work, right? Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I'm sure you've
absolutely.
seen it work in teams, right?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to empathy and, as you said, deep listening. And if you can, immersing yourselves in those worlds, in those cultures, in those stores, whatever your challenge or your business might be, is really getting close to the issues, the consumers, the shoppers, whatever that might be for your business, but really getting close so you can not just understand it and read a report, but you can feel it and you can empathize with it. You can feel the challenge even if you're not the customer. And let's be honest, a lot of organizations, especially the senior team, aren't necessarily your customer or your shopper or your consumer. So trying to build that organizational empathy so that they really feel the challenge and the emotions and the difficulties and the realities on the ground relative to that global office that, maybe wherever it is in the world, you have to help your organization really feel it. And for me, that's
Mm.
human storytelling. Now, if you can physically take people there, even better. But we don't always have the benefit of that within, a global structure. So you have to work hard to really get people to feel the emotions of others and step into other people's shoes, walk in their footsteps.
And I love how it all brings us back to human storytelling. Ultimately, it's
Yeah.
about that connection and that empathy. And I'm going to sort of move into a slightly different
Mm.
topic because I'm also really curious about your own leadership
Mm.
journey, not only in corporate world, because clearly you worked in
Yeah.
corporate for 22 years and developed your own sort of leadership
Mm.
within that, but also from that transitioning to what you're doing now and the kind of leadership you're experiencing
Yeah.
now and you're developing and evolving now. So if you could take us first of all to the sort of, I suppose, the initial parts of your career, how did you evolve your leadership? How did you step into that
Yeah.
sort of leader role? Because that is something I know listeners are really interested
Mm.
in, how to become a global leader.
Do you know what? I think my answers could be a little bit different to what you expect here because I don't think leadership is titles and structures and organizations and team and people. I don't think you have to be a boss or be a manager to be a leader at all. And I think you can start being a leader from day one because to me, leadership is about inspiring and influencing other people to move, to create movement in the organization and in other people, and inspiring others to thinking in a different way, take on an idea, change direction. To me, that is leadership. And that's different to management. And I think leadership is a skill that you can train without being a manager. So I Honestly, I think what created my ability to be a leader stems back from childhood and stems back from years of being on the stage doing dance and stage performance, actually, in
Okay,
my
so
childhood.
tell
No,
us more about
honestly,
that.
because I think being able to stand on a stage and project your voice to the back of the room, to have presence and stance, and literally to perform in front of hundreds of people, whether it's acting or singing or dancing, that is lessons in self-belief and in confidence, in conviction. And that sets you up to be a great leader. Way before I was even thinking about corporate or business life, I started dancing at, I don't know, I think I was 5 years old or something, all the way through just to university. And it was a passion of mine because I loved it. But what I didn't realize, it was setting me up for self-belief, confidence, conviction, and the ability to engage a room in what you're doing. And I think that is leadership. It's inspiring others, taking them on the journey and instilling that then in them. And I don't think you have to be a manager to do that. So yes, I've had promotions and yes, I've moved up the corporate ladder and had bigger teams and gone from local UK roles to regional and then global ultimately. Um, but I think I've had the benefit of that confidence from the beginning. And the other thing I would say is not waiting to be handed a title and not waiting for permission to be a leader, because you can inspire through great questions and constructive challenge and being in the right spaces and helping others. That's leadership to me, not titles and structures.
I love this. I really love this. And it absolutely chimes with me as well, which is something I didn't actually really realize early on in my
Mm.
own career, but I've really realized over time is that leadership starts with ourselves. We
Yeah.
cannot lead other people if we are not believing in ourselves as a leader. And I love that idea that you've really connected it to your own childhood,
Mm.
to things that you know to be true about yourself. And I also know there are a lot of people out there who might be listening to this and saying, well, I don't have that confidence yet, or I don't feel that yet. So I'm really kind of interested, like for those people who are on that journey, who are
Yeah.
developing that confidence, that self-belief, what would you say to them? How can they develop that sense of leadership?
I think do you know what? I think with confidence, it's not going to come overnight. And I think you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone because you're not going to grow in the comfort zone. You're just not. I mean, I'm not necessarily a fan of fake it till you make it because I think that can be disingenuous. But I think you have to nudge yourself into these spaces where you do feel uncomfortable and not necessarily confident because it's a muscle that you need to build. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to practice, whether it's speaking in public, whether it's putting your hand up and saying, "Oh, I'd like to be involved in that," even if you don't know how to do it. You will learn. And especially if you're at the beginning of your career, get involved. Ask questions. If you don't necessarily have the confidence to ask it of the whole room, ask it of the person next to you and build up from there. But you're going to have to push yourself out of your comfort zone to learn and to grow and build these small steps. Do one thing a day, one thing a week, and build it over time because confidence isn't an overnight thing. And, like I talked about my childhood and standing on the stage and being confident. Sometimes confidence is a delivery, and sometimes confidence is choreographed. I'm not saying you fake it, but you stand a certain way, you project a certain way. There's physicalities that you can do with your body and how you stand that help. In fact, I even did it then when I was talking. You can stand in a certain way that physiologically gives you confidence and gives you strength. My favorite one, and I did this when I did my volunteering in Africa, is the superhero stance. And I don't even know if my arms are in the video shot here, but it's the superhero stance. And there is research that shows that actually it does physically make you feel strong. So if you're walking into a meeting and you don't feel confident, go into the bathroom, stand like this for 5 minutes. I guarantee you will physically feel stronger. And some of this is just practice, being in the right spaces, putting up your hand, asking the question, and slowly nudging yourself into a more confident state and space so that you can stand on the stage, you can challenge your boss constructively, you can put yourself forward for something you feel that is out of your depth, because that's where you're going to learn.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant because it's actually not about staying safe or in control. It's about expanding, but
Yeah.
perhaps doing it. What I'm hearing you saying is expanding little by little. You don't have to go to the extreme straight away, but also you need to make sure that you are
Yeah.
always expanding. And I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I'm a very big fan of understanding the physicality of
Yeah.
confidence, understanding the other thing that, I think is really big here is this idea of your energy. What's the
Mm.
energy you're bringing into the room? How do you want to project that?
Yeah.
So yes, I love that power pose. I think it's brilliant,
Yeah,
really,
it
really
does
great.
work. It does work. And I've seen little kids in Zambia doing this and it works and it's incredible. One thing else I would say as well, I think there's a misconception that you have to be an extrovert to be a leader or you have to be extroverted to be confident. I'm an extrovert, but it's just not true. And I think I won't mention their name, but I'll send them a little message afterwards. And I used to work with this person, and they were the complete opposite me. They were very, very introverted, very, very considered, very, very rational. I'm very emotional. I'm storytelling. I'm energetic, and I'm extroverted. But do you know what? He had such power because when he said something, you knew it was going to be brilliant, and you knew it was going to be worth listening to because he didn't just ramble on and get excited like I do. He had something really clear to say, something really crystal. So actually, when he spoke in the room, which wasn't often, everybody listened. And that's really powerful.
Thank you so much for mentioning that because I do feel as well that people see sometimes there is only
Mm.
one way of being the leader or being confident. There is one way. And actually, that's quite tricky as well when we
Yeah.
talk about cultural nuances because there might be lots of reasons why people are showing up in different ways. Yes, connected to personality, but also connected to behavioral norms within
Yeah.
cultures, how people expect to react and interact with hierarchy and power distance, as well as collectivist tendency. So I think this is really important what you're saying, like that there is just not one way to do this,
Yeah, and I
even
think
though there's a predominant view.
totally. And I think be you. I use the labels of extrovert and introvert, but it's not linear like that. And I think the biggest power is being authentically yourself and finding your voice, not just a voice. Find your voice. Like, what's your opinion? What are your values? What inspires you? What motivates you? Find that voice because you will have so much more confidence projecting yourself than trying to be somebody else.
I think that's really wise. And it costs energy to be somebody
Oh, yeah.
else.
Yeah.
It costs so much energy to really try and kind of be that other version or what you think
Yeah.
people expect you to be. So brilliant. I love this. Like be yourself. I think this is something that is one of the key takeaways from this. And I'm really curious
Mm.
how leadership is evolving for you now. You're stepping into a very different space. You're moving
Yeah.
out of kind of large multinational organizations into leading your own business now. What does leadership look like to you now?
Oh, I think leadership now is completely different because in my global kind of corporate organizations, it was about, what we talked about before. It was about these unifying ideas and structure and playbooks and governance and processes. And that's completely different now. As a founder, as an entrepreneur, and as someone that's helping other founders, it's completely different in the way that I operate now. It's about human connection and one-on-one conversations and really getting close to the nuances of my clients and what they need and uncovering really what's authentic about their story, their brand, their business, their needs, their challenges, and candidly giving me the ability to react and adapt and flex live in the moment to those individual clients. And I think that can take years in an organization through, the structure and the processes and the way that those are run. I have the ability to adapt and flex to my clients in the moment. And that is so powerful. And that is what I think organizations should be doing more, irrespective of size and scale, is how do you deeply listen to the challenge that's happening? And how do you very quickly adapt and change and structure things in a way that are going to be so uniquely powerful for that individual person, that client, that customer? And things can be slow in big organizations. They really can. But not just my new world of, founder-led businesses, but also my own businesses, the world is changing so fast. I mean, there is no podcast that probably is happening at the moment that isn't talking about AI in one way, shape, or form, but is fundamentally changing the way we do things. And that means serious agility, serious deep listening, and the ability to flex and change and adapt very, very quickly and do things that AI can't, which is connection and understanding and nuance and empathy and compassion. Because sometimes businesses, their stories are kind of protected in a way. But I think actually there's so much power in that. And the more you can unleash your authenticity as a founder or as a brand, the more unique you're going to be. Because the danger with AI is that it's where does it feed from? Because if it feeds in the same space as your competitors, you're going to start sounding the same. And for me, it's about really getting to the crux of what makes a business or a founder really different and elevating that human story in a way that is really powerful. So my leadership has completely changed now. And it's much more one-on-one to inspire many than it is global down. And it's completely different way of thinking.
Yeah.
But
It sounds, yeah, go on. Sorry.
no, no, not at all. But I was going to say, right to my beginning point around leadership is it's about inspiration, it's about influence. That doesn't change. It just changes how I do it and how quickly I can do that and flex and adapt to what's happening around the world. But the core essence of that leadership is about influence and inspiring and galvanizing other people.
So the goal is still the same, but the way we're doing it perhaps is different. I
Yeah.
hear you talking about the empathy, the human skills, the agility, and being able to have your own voice, which is really powerful, right? And it's also really interesting because I hear you, obviously you're going for the TED Talk, going for the podcast.
Yeah.
So this idea of using your voice powerfully to lead, to inspire, to influence as well. Um, do you think so? One of the interesting things that I reflect on that is that from a founder point of view,
Mm.
that's almost easier, right? That's almost easier to speak, to voice, to share your story. But what does that mean at these really large macro multinational company
Mm.
levels? Because that's hard. Like, who is the voice? Who
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
authentic voice?
I'd say one thing first. I don't think it is necessarily easy for founders. Because I
Mm,
think especially if you're a founder of a business, and it's still in that smaller stage, is your business is your baby. And founders are so deeply emotional and passionate and connected and sometimes precious about their business, very rightly. I've had founders come to me and say, I've got my business and I've got my brand, but I haven't told my story because I'm not really sure. And actually, sometimes founders need the confidence also to tell their story because, in some instances, it's very unique to them, their personal journey, maybe their lived experience, what they've gone through, and the reason why they've created this service or this brand or this product. And turning that lived experience and that passion into a story that can really connect to their business, but also to them as an individual. So, not just their business, but also to Victoria. And sometimes that can feel really vulnerable as a founder. And I found that too. You are literally putting yourself out there. You don't have necessarily the armory of the organization or the structure or the business. It's literally you and your voice. So actually I'm finding that there's a lot of work to do with founders to give them the confidence to take from what they think is actually something quite vulnerable into something that I think is really deeply powerful. So I don't always think it's easier for founders to do it, although they have the full control. Now, in a global context, you're right, it's understanding who has the voice. Or, I think more importantly, what is the voice and how is the voice going to come across and how should that feel? Because the reality of the reality of a global organization is there's literally thousands of people that are your business and brand voice. Thousands, whether it's staff, whether it's people in the manufacturing plant, whether it's, your customer sales team in a retail store, to the people that are physically building the brand story, the marketing and the communication. Every single touch point that somebody has with your business and your brand is a voice. So you cannot control what everyone is saying. That is impossible. But what you can build is a really strong sense of who, how, why, and where, and instilling that essence in a way that can be felt consistently around the world. And there's incredible examples of brands where their social media managers need a serious pay rise because they are brilliant. And you know consistently that they're going to be really crisp or really sharp or really funny or really intellectual or really wise. And it's getting to that consistent story that can be told by many, because you just can't control what people will hear, but maybe you can influence how people feel.
Fantastic. And the image that's coming to my mind is this idea of almost like a choir where you've got
Mm,
all the different individual voices. They're all singing something different, but it harmonizes. It
yeah.
creates something which is coming together in one way, in one expression of
Mm.
that music. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's, I love those perspectives. And thank
It's
you
a
for
lovely
talking
me it's a lovely
about,
metaphor. Can I build on your metaphor? One,
yeah,
it's a
please.
beautiful metaphor, but in an orchestra and a symphony, you need one conductor.
Yes, yes,
Because you can imagine if there's
absolutely.
four people trying to, like, it would be chaos. And I think
Yeah.
that's the point, is there it does need to be ultimately one conductor, but there needs
Mm.
to be trust in the orchestra as well, right? You have to have the trust both ways. The artists and the musicians trust that they're going to be led in the way that's going to create something beautiful, and vice versa, that each person's going to play their role, and collectively that'll be something so much more powerful. And I think that is a beautiful metaphor. I could talk about that for hours. I might even steal it, but thanks.
Well, Laura, I'm really conscious of time, and I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I literally could talk for hours with you. But I'm kind of going to sort of bring us to a bit of a wrap up here. And one of the things that I'm always keen to sort of leave at the end of the episode is for listeners to have that sense of, what are the most important things that they need to take away from this? Like, what has, from everything we've talked about, what is key for them to remember from this conversation? I'd love to ask you that question now.
Yeah, I think the one single sentence would be, stop asking for permission.
Mm,
I think there's such confidence built in putting your hand up, leaning in, being in the right spaces, asking brilliant questions, asking the questions that you might think are quite silly. And then you'll see everyone else go, oh, I had that question too. Be brave, put your hand up, volunteer for projects that are beyond your skill set, because that's where you're going to learn. Don't ask to be a leader, be a leader. Inspire others and take that energy into the room. And if you're not quite confident yet, orchestrate it, choreograph it, practice it, build the muscle, but don't wait for the title. Don't wait for permission. Walk in with confidence, learn as you go, push yourself out of your comfort zone, because the growth will be exponential if you lean into those spaces where you feel a little bit vulnerable, because it gets easier with practice. I can tell you, my first podcast, and madly, I did my first 3 podcasts live from Cannes. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to go live, but do you know what? It gave me then so much confidence to then do the ones that were much longer and I could spend more time with the guests. Like, just go for it. Lean in, go for it. You're going to learn tons. You will fail, and that's okay too. Um, but yeah, don't wait for permission. Be the leader, lean in, be energetic, and inspire others.
yeah. Well, this has been deeply inspirational. And I absolutely love, for me, the key thing I'm taking away is be a leader. It's an identity, it's not a title.
Yeah.
It's a way of being. It's not waiting for validation from others. And I think that is really motivating and inspiring for our listeners. So thank you so much for generously sharing your insights, your learnings, your lessons along the way. I'm really kind of interested, what's next for the Ripple Impact?
Ooh, what's next? Oh, do you know what? I mean, we're still so young, the Ripple Impact. I'm doing more of the incredible work that we're doing with founders. Like, I find it so inspiring. Like, one of my absolute favorite moments is there's been tears of joy, honestly, with founders where they have the confidence then to step boldly into their space. And it's just been beautiful to see the growth in people and in the growth in brands. So the more of what we're doing, working with founders, working with brands to really elevate their human storytelling, more incredible podcast guests, and I'm totally tapping you up to join us on our podcast too. So more incredible wavemaker guests. As I said, I've applied for a TED Talk, which is incredibly exciting. And hopefully, my purpose here is to inspire people to make waves. And that's why I call my guests the wave makers, because it's in us all to really be authentically, truly ourselves and create a positive ripple impact on the world. So that's my purpose. And hopefully you'll see a lot more of that.
Amazing. Cannot wait. And it's already happening. So if people want to connect with you, talk to you, even find out more about the way you're working and supporting founders in this space, what is the best way for them to get in touch, Laura?
Yeah, come and find me on LinkedIn. I'm Laura Barber. You will find the Ripple Impact also. So either connect through my LinkedIn Ripple Impact page or come and find Laura Barber. Just DM me Ripple and this podcast, so I know where you came from. And yeah, let's start talking about your journey as a founder, as a brand. So yeah, come and find me. We are all over social media. You will find us on YouTube and LinkedIn and TikTok, and come and meet our incredible Wavemaker guests.
Amazing. Well, I highly, highly recommend the podcast. Do go and have a listen to that as well. We'll put all the links in the show notes, of course, as always. But Laura, thank you so much. A really
Thank
heartfelt thanks
you.
from me. I've really deeply enjoyed this conversation, this connection. And I know it's going to be very inspiring for our listeners as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing everyone next time on the show.
Bye for now.
Bye.